Chess for Children. We make children smarter.
Hi, this is Steve Colding from Chess for Children, and today we are going to start with an opening exploration of the Four Knights opening. Now, I believe that the Four Knights opening should be your first opening because it teaches you the principles of good development and control of the center. When we study the Four Knights variation, the first game that we should look at is the so-called Copycat Game. This happened between Jose Raul Capablanca, no-name person, or an amateur probably, in a casual game in New York in 1918. It is said that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. In fact, we learn a great deal through imitation and copying others' actions, especially like when we are babies. And when we are learning a new skill, imitation becomes a powerful tool. However, this can be taken too far. If we do it when we're lazy, if we do it instead of understanding what we are doing, then it can become a detriment to us. And this is what happens in the game Capablanca versus the amateur. The amateur said, "Hey, I'm playing a super strong player. The best thing I could do is copy all his moves and use his moves against him." In most cases, this might have worked. This might have been a good strategy against somebody who didn't have creative ideas, who didn't know what to do. But against the world champion, it is a recipe for devastation. And you will see how the great Capablanca, who at one point didn't lose a game in 14 years, deals with this person who is trying to usurp the ideas of a world champion. E4, E5, Knight F3, Knight C6, Knight C3, and Knight F6. And this is the starting point of the Four Knights opening. Now, gee, I wonder why it's called the Four Knights opening. Chess players in a lot of their names are not very creative. So this is the Four Knights opening. And now white plays bishop to b5. Now, there's very many moves for white at this point, but bishop to b5 constitutes the Spanish Four Knights. And it's called the Spanish Four Knights because it resembles the Spanish opening, which is the other name for the Spanish opening is called the Ruy Lopez. And we'll talk about Ruy Lopez at another time, but that's the name of this opening, the Spanish Four Knights. The next move, black plays bishop to b4 and copies white. Remember, this is the Copycat Game. And bishop b4 is named the double Spanish. White plays the best move, he castles. Black plays the best move. White brings out his bishop, and then he brings it and pins. Now, at this point, black should take the knight at c3 because white is pinning the knight at f6, and if white can, he will play the knight to d5, which will give black a few problems. But black says, no, I'm not going to stand for that. I'm going to do it too. I'm going to make the same move that you did because, hey, moving your knight to d5, I'll move my knight to d4, which is, guess what, is what he does. Now, white takes the bishop that's on pre, black takes his bishop, and then he moves back. Okay, and now here we have the position. Now, principles are good because they may lead us along the way and help us decide what move to do. Now, here at this point, white has moved his knights, his bishops, his castle, so now he needs to connect rooks by moving his queen. And the move he plays is queen to d2. Of course, not queen to e2. The knight would simply take. And now, however, what he does do when he does that, The knight at f3, white's knight at f3 is now attacked twice. That's only defended once. Now in this part, which is part one of the copycat game, we will see what happens when bishop takes knight. Okay, so black plays. In the next video, we will see what happens when knight takes. Okay, now in this position, white cannot take back the bishop because the knight at f3 would check the king and the queen and fork the queen and end up winning the queen, which is not a good idea. Wait a minute, Mr. C. You just lost us a piece. It looks like that. But here the move is bishop takes knight. Now, there's two moves black can do. He can either take it or he can move up with queen to d7. Now, in the game, he played queen to d7, still following Capablanca's idea. But what would happen if he would take? Well, we're going to look at that. Okay, we're going to look at him taking. Taking the pawn at g7 creates a weakness. And what's a weakness? A place to invade. Now, the pawn at g7 was covering the square h6. And guess what? That's a beautiful square for white to invade. And so, see, moving pawns creates weaknesses. Now here, black's best move, right, would be knight to e2 check. And the game would continue sort of like this. Knight to e2, king over, bishop takes, king to h1, knight to f6, rook here, king here, rook here. Now rook can't take, knight takes, rook takes. If rook takes, king would take, and there would be no way to prevent the queen here without giving up the queen, because queen is threatening mate at h7. So what happens? Queen goes to f8. Now he's threatening rook takes rook, which would win white's queen. So black moves the rook, white moves the rook up to g3. Now if rook takes rook, queen would take h7. So here, black, it doesn't really matter what he does. I'll just do h6. And then rook to h3 ends the game, because we'll just give him any move. It doesn't matter. We'll give him rook e8. And now queen would take, rook takes, and rook would take, and that would be checkmate. And the only way to stop that would be to give up the queen on g8, and that would be a winning advantage anyway. Okay, so right here, that would be that would be black's best way to get out. Okay, but here he played pawn takes. No, he played queen to d. I'm sorry. He played queen to d7 now. And now this is devastating, because knight e7 check wins the queen. And if queen takes, well, that's just the winning game. Okay? And if king goes over here, then bishop takes, king takes, queen g5, and queen f6 is mate. Now, notice that if white gets too fancy and plays instead queen to h6 here, this ends up losing the game, because black has the same combination, a mirror combination. Okay, and would lead to checkmate. So here, at this point, now, one more thing. If queen to g5 is not as good, because black could play knight to e6, which attacks the queen and threatens and protects against the checkmate. So queen would move, bishop, knight would go to d4, and remember the bishop is immune now, okay? And bishop would take, and f6. And even though white is clearly winning here, it's still a game, okay? And it's not as clean as winning the queen in the variation of when he plays queen there, okay? Of course, black can't play queen here and further copy because of knight e7, king over, and bishop g7. Okay, so this is the start of the copycat game. The next variation we will be looking at will be when, instead of bishop takes knight, black plays knight takes knight, check. This is Steve Colding from Chess for Children. If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up if it's on YouTube. If not, hey, just enjoy it. Okay, I'll see you later. Bye.